Call the meeting to order. We'll begin with a moment of silent prayer. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Supervisor Kist, Supervisor Bulua, and Supervisor Carr excused. Other than that, we are 23 present. Begin with the affidavit of posting. This is a meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. Prior to this meeting, public notice was given by posting a copy of the agenda in the office of the county clerk and emailing the agenda to the West Bend Daily News, which is the official newspaper. In addition, the agenda was emailed to CNI newspapers, Express News, Kewaskum Statesman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, WIBD, WMBZ Radio, and WTKM Radio. The above action is in conformity with the state of Wisconsin open meeting law. Begin with the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to accept. Supervisor Schleif, Supervisor Hartwig. Any questions or additions to that? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Move on to personal appearances, letters, and other communications, the 4-H Key Awards presentation. Elizabeth Reinhardt will be speaking on behalf of the 4-H Key Awards.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Amy Mangan Fisher, and I am here as a representative of University of Wisconsin, Madison Division of Extension, Washington County. I want to recognize these, four impressive Washington County youth. Andrew Biney, Veronica Dufek, Elizabeth Reinhardt, and Micah Steddy were chosen as our Wisconsin 4-H Key Award recipients from Washington County. I am proud to be able to honor them this evening. The Wisconsin 4-H Key Award Program recognizes a select group of 4-H participants who have demonstrated consistent growth in their 4-H involvement, developed and applied their leadership skills, and actively participated in the functions of their 4-H club and community. It is the highest award given by Washington County 4-H. Elizabeth will now share her experience with Washington County 4-H.
Good evening. As you know, my name is Elizabeth Reinhardt. I'm a senior at Hartford Union High School and a 10-year member of the Thompson Irish Settlers 4-H Club, as well as an honored recipient of the 4-H Key Award. I first learned about 4-H from my mom, who told me stories about her experiences making clothing projects and showing cattle in her county's fair. Her stories about meeting people and traveling, as well as making projects for the fair, immediately made me want to join the program. Although when I first started, I was a little bit more interested in the project side of 4-H, I quickly learned that there's so much more to the 4-H experience. When I walked into the first meeting of the Thompson Irish Settlers 4-H Club, I was immediately struck by how excited everyone seemed to be there. From tiny clover buds under 3rd grade all the way up to officers in high school, everyone was engaged and ready to address the agendas. Throughout all of the meetings, I saw all of the officers handle agendas efficiently, answer questions, and keep everyone smiling. I decided that that was the path I wanted to follow, and from there learned about writing and promoting my club, taking notes during meetings, making agendas, and eventually leading meetings myself. In addition to learning about leadership, I also learned a lot about community service in 4-H. That extends to my club experiences, where we have different activities like providing a community Easter egg hunt for those in the area, as well as adopting a road and cleaning it twice a year. This is in addition to experiences through 4-H, such as 4-H National Congress, which this year was in Atlanta, Georgia, where we had an entire day dedicated to contributing to our host city, which was Atlanta. I also learned about having fun during community service. Community service isn't just something that should be checked off your list or an obligation that you have to fulfill. It's also an opportunity to spend time with your fellow 4-Hers and contribute to a community to make it better than how you started. As well as working on community service, I also learned about stepping beyond my comfort level. When I started out 4-H, I was a lot less comfortable speaking in front of people, and it's hard to think that now I could walk up to a stranger and introduce myself with very few qualms, when then I would have been scared to even look at them. I learned that through 4-H, it wasn't something that was inherent, it was a skill that I learned. In 4-H, especially through my club, we have demonstrations where we often stand up in front of our club and give kind of a talk on what we're learning about a recent experience or a project that we're working on. That was kind of my first step in learning how to speak in front of people. I've also had amazing opportunities, as well as these gentlemen can attest to as well, participating in 4-H workshops and in experiences such as National 4-H Congress and other experiences where you sometimes don't know anyone who's there and you have to be able to make connections with other people. This has pushed me to develop that skill of being able to introduce myself to other people, as well as giving me the opportunity, as I might not have taken that chance had I had someone that I could have retreated to knowing while I was there. 4-H also presents a lot of challenges. We have deadlines to meet, records to keep, meetings to schedule, applications to fulfill, as well as reflections to complete on all of the amazing experiences. That makes it vital for 4-Hers to be able to manage a schedule, to be able to write an agenda, keep records of all that they're doing, and reflect on all of the amazing experiences that 4-H has to offer. 4-H has given me invaluable lessons on leading, speaking, managing, and giving, and I know that those skills, in addition to the amazing experiences I've had at my club level, in my county, and in my state, and in my world, I know those will serve me well and help me to help others wherever my future may lead. On behalf of myself and the other key award recipients this evening, thank you.
Have a little something for you guys. First of all, this is Andrew.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys. Thank you very much. These are Washington's finest coming through, and take a look at your seat, because you guys might be sitting in them when you get a little bit older. Okay, consideration upon request reading of resolutions and ordinances. Resolution 2019-52, commendation for Kathy Brecker. I'll take a motion to entertain. Supervisor Bossert, Supervisor Bertram. Oh, sorry.
Whereas Kathy Brecker has contributed more than 40 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Kathy Brecker has chosen to retire from her present position of licensed practical nurse at Samaritan Health Center, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Kathy Brecker for her 40 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to her heartfelt thanks for her many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Kathy Brecker as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is a small token of our appreciation, and I think there must be a misprint on there. It can't be 40 years, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. We must hire them awful young in Washington County. Because every time I pass one of these out, it says 40 years. No one looks the part. So,
thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you. 40 years is a long time, but you'd be surprised how fast that goes. I've enjoyed my time, but I knew when it was time to also step down. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You're going to read Linda's, right?
I have a card to read too.
Okay. 2019 Resolution 53, commendation of Linda Dorrell. Supervisor Jenkins, Supervisor Gallitz.
Whereas Linda Dorrell has contributed more than 30 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Linda Dorrell has chosen to retire from her present position of Chief Deputy County Clerk, Office Supervisor in the County Clerk's Office, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Linda Dorrell for her 30 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to her heartfelt thanks for her many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Linda Dorrell as a token of appreciation on the part of this board. And I also have a thank you card that she wrote. She would have been here tonight, but she is in a place that is much warmer than here. To the county board, thank you for the very generous gift. I definitely will have no problem spending this on something to remember you all. I've enjoyed working with each and every one of you these past 30 years. Thank you for all your support and friendships. I truly appreciate that. Even though I'm looking forward to my retirement, I will miss the daily interactions with all of you. I wish you all the best luck in the future. Take care, and you will be missed. Sincerely, Linda.
Well, stand. 2019 Resolution 54, commendation of Robert Constance. Supervisor Dice, Supervisor Bishop.
Whereas Robert Constance has contributed more than 31 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Robert Constance has chosen to retire from his present position of Deputy Sheriff Lieutenant in the Sheriff's Office, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Robert Constance for his 31 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to him heartfelt thanks for his many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Robert Constance as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Working in the best police department in the state of Wisconsin.
I truly believe that as well.
Yeah. And I know from experience, I was 30 years as a cop also, so
Yeah.
I have a special place in my heart for you guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your service.
All right. Thank you for putting up with 30 years of being a police officer. And it's a great department and a lot of great young men and women that are coming up through the ranks that are going to help the mission go on for the sheriff. Very good.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 2019 Resolution 55, authorization to petition for annexation of Washington County Golf Course and Family Park to the City of Hartford. Supervisor Mchugh, your second. Supervisor Bossert. Have a short presentation by Administrator Shulman. Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just before we start, and thank you, Josh, for putting the presentation together. I know obviously there's going to be some passion in the room, and what I'd like to do, if I could please, is just ask for a bit of perspective. Many families in Washington County have members who serve in the military. Fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters. Most of you know that 4 of our children are currently serving in the military, with one already deployed to Ukraine. Our prayers for your Washington County neighbors currently serving in the military, I don't think you choke up on this, especially those who may be called up in short notice due to the current Iran crisis, would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
As we start with this agenda item, there's just a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, draw your attention to the resolution that you're considering tonight. So this is 2019 Resolution 55. You'll notice on page 2, line 7, this is a majority vote. That means it's a majority of members present. Considering there's 23 members present, it will take 12 votes to pass this resolution, just so you know that going in. With that, I'd just like to give a brief history of what brought us to this point. I know it's in the county board report, but I know we have a lot of people who are watching, and I know that we have a lot of people in the room. Dating back to August of this year, staff, working under the auspices of the Parks Fiscal Sustainability Plan, worked as we've been directed to find properties that the county owns that we could put back onto the property tax rolls. The motivation for that, as spelled out in the Parks Fiscal Sustainability Plan, is to put those properties back on the tax rolls, create revenue to go into the parks fund, the enterprise fund, help the parks operate better, and produce more property taxes. The first time that this item came to a committee was August 8th. It says 2018, it was the Parks Fiscal Sustainability Plan was adopted in 2018. The first time this went to our committee was in May of 2019, the 22nd of May 2019. This was listed as a consent agenda item where the committee was updated, that a discussion was beginning with the town of Hartford. As you can see in your committee report, that took several months. It was not something that was put on the agenda in May, and by June or July, it transpired into a meeting. That meeting didn't actually take place with the Town of Hartford Plan Commission until September 4th, 2019. Staff presented at that meeting. Central Services Director Jamie Ludovic, who's with us tonight here in the front row, she presented to the Plan Commission at that time. You can see the outcome of that meeting. The Plan Commission recommended to the town board that they actually attempt to purchase the 3-acre parcel that was in question. On September 9th, that item went to the town board. The town board indicated, and you can see in the motion, this motion is from the town meeting, just to be clear, it is not from one of our committees, although that's how we normally list our own motions. Chairman Lippert at that town board meeting motioned to refer the issue to the City of Hartford and Town of Hartford Joint Plan Commission for further review and discussion. In conversation with Chairman Lippert, who is here tonight, the intent was to have that joint commission discuss this because it being a land division would ultimately need to go through that procedure anyway. And you can see that that motion carried. It wasn't long after that, my understanding is, in the month of November, a joint plan commission was scheduled. I believe it was early in the month of November, if that's correct? November 11th. Shortly before that meeting was scheduled to take place, it was canceled. And as far as I know, the county staff doesn't know the reason for that cancellation. Shortly after the cancellation, you can see the steps that took place. Supervisor Mchugh reached out, attached to your packet, as part of the public documentation, is the letter that requested the annexation that's under consideration tonight. Shortly after that, at the executive committee meeting, that agenda was posted on December 10th of 2019. The meeting itself occurred on December 17th. There was a motion and a second, which ultimately carried to propose the resolution that's in front of you tonight. I should note that there were 3 members of the public at that meeting, a member of the Town Plan Commission, a member of the Town Board, and a citizen from the adjacent subdivision to the golf course. And you can see that the executive committee passed that motion, and that's why it's in front of you tonight. So that's a little bit about the history of this proposal. The other thing that I think is worth noting is in staff doing the due diligence on this proposal, as we try to do with all proposals, after it was brought forward by First Vice Chair Mchugh and ultimately went through executive, we did as much background research as we could, looking back even to some documentation prepared by, at the time, County Attorney Farragher. He put together a very comprehensive essay, I guess for lack of a better term, multiple page essay. At the time, the town of Hartford had requested thousands of dollars of open records requests, and the county attorney at that time drafted up this essay in a kind of the absence of forcing multiple $1,000 open record requests. In the text of that, and in some of the discussions that I have had with people who were around at that time, there was conversation about annexing the golf course into the city limits already back during the inception of the course. So this isn't a new issue. This is just the latest version of an issue that seems to keep coming up. If you're interested, we can certainly get you a copy of that essay from the county attorney at the time and any of the documentation associated with it. Several other documents that came up while we were doing our due diligence, we really wanted to try to come to the county board tonight and give you a firm recommendation. You can see at the time that the committee report was put together about a week and a half ago, there is no recommendation from staff. The reason for that is simple. I believe, and I've just explained a little bit of how this has been an issue dating back to really the inception of the course. This is an issue of when the golf course is going to get annexed into the city limits, not if. Even in discussions, yesterday afternoon, I took an hour PTO and drove to the subdivision adjacent to the golf course and stopped at about half a dozen houses and talked to a handful of those folks. About 5 different homes talked to me or let me in. And in those discussions, it's pretty clear that the concern is the city coming out that far to the town. And that's really what we're worried about at the end of the day. And a large acknowledgement that this has always been a discussion for years and years, and that they knew it was coming at some point, just whether it was now or sometime later. And so what I tried to do in doing due diligence is really find the history and use the planning documents that you've adopted in the past, that have been adopted by other local government bodies in the past, to help drive the decision. Use the facts to drive the decision, not emotion. And so what we've prepared for you today is a handful of things to try to help you make the decision. Because again, I think what the county board is deciding today is not if the annexation of the golf course is going to happen, but when the annexation of the golf course is going to happen. And I'll walk you through more of that in just a few minutes. What you're looking at in this map, and I will make it larger. What you're looking at in the map, right in the center of this map is the golf course property. The subdivision, this is the subdivision that I'm circling on the northeast side of the golf course. The subdivision on the southeast corner of the golf course, this is Mount Vernon Estates. This is a relatively new subdivision, relatively within like the last 10 years. It's really filled out in the last 2 years, but the utilities have been out there for almost a decade, and it has been annexed for almost a decade. As you may or may not know, in order for an annexation to happen, the property must be contiguous to the existing boundaries of the city. This property, this subdivision, is that contiguous area. So you can see the southeast corner of the golf course abuts that portion of the subdivision, and therefore it is contiguous. It is important to note that when the golf course was constructed, approximately 2 decades ago, that subdivision did not exist, and that sewer and water was not anywhere near that area. It is at this point in time, and thus this resolution is able to be considered by the county board at this point. I'll pull back from this for a moment, and I will zoom in just momentarily. Just bear with me for a second. We're going to toggle between screens, so it's going to be a little bit difficult, but I just want to make sure you get the full picture. When you're looking at the golf course on the northeast corner of the course, so if you can imagine that map you looked at a moment ago, you saw the subdivision on the northeast side.
Slide 4.
Slide 4. So you can see the subdivision on the northeast side. On the far north side of the course, that green highlighted area, I'll circle around that. That green highlighted area is the family park. When I spoke just a moment ago about the timeline that brought us to this point, when you go all the way back to the month of May, into the summer months of last year, this was really the piece of property that we were talking about, okay? This family park portion. When you zoom in on that land, what you see is a couple of things. This pond, now we're zoomed in, this pond here is an irrigation pond that irrigates a large portion of the golf course. There's actually a well house right here. The balance of this land, so the western portion of Family Park, just for note, this piece of property on the left side of this slide, west of that parking lot, is a private residence. So the west portion of Family Park is really what we were talking about in terms of land dividing, working through the town plan commission and the town board and ultimately city council, and splitting off. This is the original proposal in terms of a certified survey map. It's relatively simplistic. You can see we were proposing at the time to basically continue to have one access point, and that would be an easement area that is shared. In other words, county vehicles could come in on that area and access the well house and whatever land we needed to access, and whatever property owner would own this after sale would have the same access. So really, at the end of the day, from staff's perspective, that was the motivation. The park's fiscal sustainability plan and splitting off this 3-acre piece of land. You can see, so let's talk more about the plans that are associated with the county, because they're very important before I get into the specifics of this plot. So there's really about 3 different plans that we would reference when we contemplate what do we do with the future use of a property. The county's comprehensive plan, or smart growth plan, however you want to refer to it, which in large part adopts the municipal smart growth plans, city, townships, so on and so forth. So when you look at the City of Hartford smart growth plan, in other words, how do they plan to grow this municipality over time, you look at this map, and on this map I'm circling right now this lime green colored section of property. This is the piece of property that is in consideration. That's the golf course as a whole. If you were able to zoom in close, right below where I've got the hatch at this moment, that is really the piece of the family park piece that we were talking about. What's important to note is that is a colored piece of property, meaning it's within the boundaries of the future land use area of the City of Hartford. What does that mean? That means that on the smart growth plan of the City of Hartford, and therefore on the county's comprehensive plan, this was planned to become part of the city at some point in time. Again, I believe from a strictly factual basis, it's not if, it's when. The conversation for this body to have tonight is when does that annexation happen? The other thing that's important to point out, and it's a little bit easier to see here, I'll try it on this form as well. So now, again, this is the piece of property that we're talking about, the golf course as a whole. Underneath the cursor is where the family park is. I'm going to try to zoom in here just a little bit. That red line right here that you're looking at, so it'd be just north of the golf course and north of the family park across the street, approximately 1/8 of a mile, give or take. That red line is the edge of the sewer service area for the city. Okay? Every municipality that has a sewer system has a sewer service area. It's a mandate from the state of Wisconsin that says they must spell out what their future plans are for how far municipal sewer is intended to go, where it's allowed to be able to go. That red line is the sewer service area for the city of Hartford, excuse me. And so you can see, once again, another plan that we have that helps guide these decisions from a factual basis, from staff's perspective. This property is within that sewer service area. In addition, the Farmland Preservation Plan, another document that we adopt to help drive when are annexations and other developments appropriate, when are they not, is the Farmland Preservation Map. This is the Farmland Preservation Map. The hashed areas, help me if I go astray here, Jamie. The hashed areas are areas that in 2006, correct, were agricultural uses. If you study this map really closely, if you're familiar with the north side of Hartford, you're going to notice that a lot of those areas in 2006 that were farming areas, farmland areas, are not farmland areas anymore. But what I want to point out specifically is the entirety of the golf course and the family park area are not in the preservation area. Okay. Furthermore, the areas that are in this brown color, as well as the areas that are in this tan color, are some variation of worthy of being preserved farmland. Okay, land that this plan, at the time it was adopted, we said this is land we want to make sure is preserved if we can in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so again, you can see this is white. This is not a color brown, so it's white property. It does not fall within the farmland preservation properties. So, with that said, those three plans would be typically what drives staff recommendations for why you would do something or why you wouldn't do something. As you can see from all of the plans that staff would formulate a recommendation around, there is no plan that we have that would direct you not to do this. That being said, there's also no plan that says you should do this. This is truly a public policy decision that this board's got to make. And again, it's not if, because all the plans show that at some point it's going to happen, it's when. So as you contemplate your public policy question tonight, as you have your debate, it should revolve around when does the annexation happen. And it really, at the end of the day, is now that time. That being said, let's zoom back into the property that started this whole conversation. What you're looking at here is a topographical map of the property, the 3 acres. I'll show you again. This is the 3 acres in a certified survey map. This is the topographical map. What you'll notice is that as you get closer to the pond, no surprise, it gets quite flat and, as you can imagine, quite wet, particularly in the springtime. But as much precipitation as we've had, it's been wet quite frequently. The western parts, as you can see, this area here are significantly higher, and so that's not the same case. So when you're in this parking lot area, but especially when you're up on the southwest corner of what would be that 3-acre parcel, it's not as much of a low area. So that was the perception, that was the thought process that went into creating the CSM. We ran this not only past our parks and planning people, but also our land conservation, land use folks. And there was agreement among the staff before this even came to the committee that that 3-acre parcel is developable. Whatever the use is would be the discretion of whoever were to purchase it, but it is developable. So, for the sake of discussion, we had put together a couple of different scenarios. This is one scenario if it were a city property, if multiple parcels were created from it. It appears, based on staff discussion, that soil systems could be created. We have not perked the property. We have no intention to perk the property. That would be the responsibility of anybody who were to purchase it, not the county. But there are multiple scenarios where that we did look at, and they all appear based on staff's expertise. And I will note our land use team does this for a living. This is one of the major functions of what they do. For all intents and purposes, they believe there should be no problem putting a soil system in the area. I'll also note, if you look really closely on the southeast corner of the neighboring property, there's a system located there. So we have every reason to believe it will perk. It is suitable for building if that were what was to be chosen to do. So that is how we came to where we're at today. I will note, again, I talked to about a half a dozen neighbors yesterday, and I want to make clear, since I have the opportunity to talk to you today, that none of those folks have any interest in annexation. Several of them said to me that they knew that one day something like this was going to happen. They don't want it to happen today. They'd like to see it wait as long as possible. I will quote a comment that I got from one of them, and I will not name that person, but that person said people are afraid of two things, basically. And I have a lot of respect for this individual. Number one, they will eventually have to be part of the high-tax sewer and water city of Hartford. We have nothing against the city of Hartford. We literally moved out to the town so we could have lower taxes and not be on city sewer and water. The other thing that he noted that people are afraid of is that they may lose their view of the golf course. They're concerned particularly that development is going to come. They understand completely, as was laid out in the executive committee meeting, that golf is a dying industry. Several of them told me they don't think the county should be in the golf business, but that's beside the fact. I'm quoting them. That if the county is going to downsize the course, they understand that as well. They just don't want condos in their backyard. They don't want the city of Hartford that close to their backyard. So I told them that I would share that sentiment with the board. So I'm sharing that with the board. That's the information staff has. To this point, we continue to not have a recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Jamie's here to answer questions as well as Central Services Director. So at this time, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I want to, for the people that are here, this is not a public hearing. This is just a business meeting of the county board. So public comment will not be allowed at this point. Supervisors will have a chance to question. Each supervisor has had an opportunity to speak with many of you and has either gotten written correspondence or emails. And everyone pretty much knows where those people stand, and they'll act as your representative accordingly. Thank you. Are there any questions? Could you press in? Supervisor Bishop is first online.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel very strongly that the county putting this forward is jumping the gun on the local municipalities. They did have a joint meeting set between the town and the city. The fact that there were conflicts and they had to cancel it. We then went into holiday season, so obviously they haven't had time to do their due diligence. There is a procedure for these types of things. We're looking at doing a land division. It affects a town and municipality, and I think they should have the opportunity to do their job and not have the county supersede them and try and run roughshod over them. I'm voting no because I don't think this is where the county should be. We should let the local municipalities take care of their own business. Thank you.
Supervisor Bertram.
Yeah, Josh, could you by chance put that big map back up?
Which map would you like?
The very first one you had up?
Of the whole golf course?
Yeah. Well, the whole GIS map, this
Sure.
is what I want.
That one?
Yeah, that would be the one. I mean, I can see where the golf course is, obviously, and now I know where the family park is. Where's the 40 acres that the county has up for sale right now?
Right here.
Southwest corner. Mark's Woods.
It's right there.
That, okay, that parcel.
Correct.
Okay, so that's 40 acres, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, one of my questions is, and I got a couple of comments too, but one of my questions is do we do anything with that property? My understanding it was, all it is like a refuge. I mean, there's no grass cutting, there's no picnic tables,
That's correct.
it's just a blank piece of property.
Correct.
And we have it up for sale.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is not part of this discussion.
No, I understand that.
Oh, okay.
I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out, when we start selling properties off, what lengths we're going to here and stuff. So we've got 40 acres that we don't have any cost really involved that was given to us, that kind of stuff. So anyway, now we go up to the golf course and to the family park. My understanding is, and please jump in if you want. My understanding is that park was a lot nicer looking than it does now. It seems like it's been in decline. We haven't been cutting the grass.
Correct.
So actually, we've kind of set ourselves up for, well, if we don't cut the grass, we don't get people there. We can always say that the park's not being used. My understanding is, from what I get, is that park was used quite a bit and still is, but because we're not cutting the grass, so we're not really putting any money into it, it isn't used as much. Now, the problem that I have with that is now all of a sudden, we're probably using part of that non-use as a reason to sell the property. Yes?
No, I'll correct you there.
Okay.
So on both parks,
Okay.
the parks fiscal sustainability plan is pretty clear.
Mhm.
And at the time, so now we're going back a couple of years, the previous committees, but it was again adopted as recently as last summer, the Parks Fiscal Sustainability Plan. It directs us which parks are priority parks that staff should spend time on, and which parks are not priority parks. The reason there wasn't time spent on it is the county board by resolution literally told us, don't spend time on it. Both with Mark's Woods and with with Family Park and with several others, frankly. And we're also directed in that same document to liquidate any properties that are in that same category for the purpose of taking the money from that and putting it into other parks. When that discussion happened, the initial discussion about the Parks Fiscal Sustainability Plan, there were supervisors in this room who said, forget it, let's just sell them all and get out of the business. And the deal that was brokered was, no, we'll stay in the business, but we'll try to make the thing operate on its own. So both pieces of property are declining by the direction of the board, not by the direction of staff.
Okay, so in other words, we're not keeping that park up as well as it used to be
True.
because this room said we shouldn't.
Exactly.
Okay,
A majority.
okay, a majority.
Correct.
So I'm looking around here like I'm seeing a bunch of blank faces, but as far as the golf course and all that goes, I can't figure out for myself the difference between taking that property, that particular properties we're talking about, into the city of Hartford, to me, the only advantage would be is the property values would go up. So now I'm saying to myself, okay, so now the golf course is worth $200,000. We take it into Hartford, and all of a sudden it's worth $400,000. That doesn't mean anything to me. That's my park. That's the county's golf course. That's a park. One of the things that happened a number of years ago, I'll be real short, is I said no to a park, and the body at the time said yes to the park, so we took it. It was 22 acres of junk land that the family wanted to get rid of. We took it as a park. And I was told at that time that we should look at parks as quality of life. Where can people take their kids? What can we do with areas that the county has? All of a sudden now, this particular parcel here, it doesn't seem like that's a good quality of life. Now we want to change this. Again, I guess the other thing that bothers me about this whole thing is when I talked about, or what I feel I voted on probably back then, is when I said parks, I was thinking of parks like the one that we took right across from Washington County, which
Fair
is
Park. That's
right across the Fair Park, I'm sorry. That to me, that park, I don't know why there'd be a park there, I'd be honest with you. And I looked at it from the standpoint, as far as us selling parks, was not to make a ton of money, but get some money out of it and all that kind of stuff. But I honestly can tell you that 40-acre parcel, which we're not talking about, but that 40-acre parcel, if I gave that to the county, I'd be one ticked off person that the county is trying to make money on what I gave them to have a park for refuge. Same thing with these parks. I don't know the whole story because I'm maybe not that old. I'm old, but maybe I'm not that old. But I'm assuming that that golf course, the county didn't buy that property to say, let's put a golf course there. Somebody donated that property, am I right or wrong?
They donated the golf
Okay,
course.
so they donated that. The family donates that, and there's a golf course there. Tell me how pissed off you'd be if you gave the county something and then decided X amount of years later that let's put it in Hartford, let's make it be worth more than what it is now, and then take the profits. I understand we want to make parks sustainable. I understand that, but they were never sustainable before. What is it? I think you wrote in your thing, like $735,000 was the cost of maintaining all these parks. Now, because the golf course is making money, some changes that you've made, rentals, that kind of stuff, it's down to like 300,000 plus. Am I right?
I deferred to Jamie.
On the levy?
Well, yeah, right.
Well,
It's
less
like
than
300 something, right?
On the levy, it's 150.
Much less than you posted.
Okay, so it's gone down from, what, 600,000? Down to 100,000? And we're not happy? We've got to take property and try to be worth more so we can sell it for more? I'm sorry, I don't get this whole plan. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Supervisor Merton.
I too am concerned relative to this, and let me ask you on the golf course, where is the practice field? Is that what you're talking about, the 3 acres?
No,
Where's the practice area?
let me zoom in. This is gonna take a second. Oh, you're not. So this area here, are you able to see that?
Yep.
This area here is the practice, so the outside actually, so this is the driving range right here. These are the 3 practice holes, and this is a chipping area. The 3 acres we're talking about is on the other side, the northeast side. It's here, right there, just northwest of the pond.
On the other side of the property.
Yes, it'd be on the northeast,
Farm property.
northeast side of the property, northwest of the pond.
And how does the practice area connect at the back south end?
The practice area over here,
Yes,
connect to, I'm
to the
sorry.
golf course.
I mean, this is all, it's all contiguous right here.
Okay. All right, so that was one question I had relative to the whole issue. I don't understand why the county is involved in annexation. I don't think the county should get involved in that. Leave it between the town and the city. They should be able to work it out and decide what it is they're going to be doing. I don't think we as a county should be superimposing any powers over local jurisdictions. That's only asking for trouble. Let it be that the people decide. And I guess I have a question. Somebody in this room must understand why that joint meeting was canceled. Anybody tell me?
Supervisor Mahalik?
Thank you very much. Am I live?
Super. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you
You're
very
right
much,
now.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, thank you for letting me jump in here. As regards to the meeting, Mr. Chairman, we had a meeting scheduled, I believe it was announced, it was November 11th. It turned out that we couldn't get a full, some people, including myself, were not able to make that meeting in the very short term. We looked to reschedule, but in the intervening time, Supervisor Mchugh made us aware of the fact that he was going to petition for annexation. It was going to the executive committee. This created a legal conundrum. And it's an interesting thing when Supervisor Bishop and Supervisor Burton, say, well, the county shouldn't be involved. The county is the property owner. This is that rare thing. So now we're looking at, you want a joint meeting, that's great, but the joint meeting has to happen when we have a petition for annexation. We don't have a petition for annexation, which means how am I going to have a meeting to discuss something that doesn't exist? That's the legal problem. Because what can happen, let me give you a scenario. John and Mary Smith have a farm. John and Mary Smith get in conversations around thinking, you know, our kids are gone, one's in South Carolina, one's in Texas, one's in Oregon, they're not coming back, and we're thinking of doing something with our farm that we would be interested in as far as annexation. And that gets out. Well, are we supposed to then have people from the town of Hartford rush over to the city? So we have to have a meeting to talk about this. Talk about what? Well, they're talking about having an annexation. Well, okay, they're talking about it, but we can't do, and we can't let them have a meeting and then try and bull rush the people who are thinking about an annexation. The petition has to exist first. We don't have a petition for annexation. We're doing that now. And until that petition for annexation comes up, after the meeting was canceled, we can't redo the meeting without the petition in place. So if we have a petition, we can have a meeting. That's how it works. That's the system. We're not going to have any legal meeting just so people feel good. It doesn't work that way. And I'd love it to say, okay, the county can't get involved. The county is the property owner. They have to be involved because the county has to have the petition for annexation. That's why. Thank you. Well, I actually, unless you want me to push in for my other part, then I'd be happy.
No, I'll get you later.
Okay,
You
thanks.
can,
Is Marilyn still? Click on
Yeah.
it too.
Marilyn, Supervisor Burton, you can finish, please. Sorry.
Okay, because I guess I appreciate the comment, but I don't understand why the petition, why the letter was even written to Washington County. It should have been written to the town of Hartford. Isn't a property in the town of Hartford?
So the letter that was written by Supervisor Mchugh, is that what we're referring to?
Yes.
The letter that was written by Supervisor Mchugh is what is required to come to this body, because this body has to approve any letter to go to anyone else. Supervisor Mchugh can't send it himself, the chairman can't send it himself, I can't send it, this body has to send it if you're going to send anything. That's the whole point of the resolution.
So is the issue whether or not the county wants to pursue annexation to the city of Hartford? So
Yes.
then, okay, and so But whatever action is taken by this body would be action to the town of Hartford?
No,
No.
the action will go to the city.
So you're skipping the step of the municipality that the golf course is located.
There isn't a step in the statutory process, there is no step to consult the town on annexation. It's a statutory process, it's not the county's process, because we're the property owner, that's the only reason. If it was anyone else was the property owner, that property owner would go straight to the city. In the case that we're in, however, we started with the town with regard to a land division, not an annexation,
Okay?
okay? So that's why we started the conversation at the town level. We had multiple conversations with the town clerk. I myself, along with Jamie, our Central Services Director, had a conversation with the town chairman before the Plan Commission. We were at the Town Plan Commission, we were at the town board, and after that, the Supervisor Mchugh came up with this proposal. So they're two separate proposals. Supervisor Mchugh made that very clear at the executive committee, but they are clearly linked to one another. There was a cause and effect. So the reason that it's coming to you now to go directly to the city is because there is no process to go anywhere else. If you say no, in effect, you're leaving things the way they are. It remains town property. If the vote on this resolution is 12 to 11, not no, it dies. If it's 12 to 11, yes, it goes to the city council. That's the only process there is on the annexation.
Because cities and villages are the only ones who can annex properties.
That's correct.
Towns do not have any allowance in that whole process.
You are correct, yes.
Okay, that was a long, I had another thought, like, yeah, think of it right now.
Okay. Supervisor Dice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From the emails that I have received on this issue and the phone calls, it appears that there are several misconceptions on the county's petition to have the Washington County Golf Course annexed to the city of Hartford. For purposes of clarity, the city of Hartford is not seeking annexation of the golf course. If this passes this evening, Washington County is the entity who will be seeking annexation to the city. As to the misconceptions in the emails that I have received, they are as follows. Number one, the proposed annexation, if granted, will cause the city to annex further town lands. The reality is that this would be highly unlikely, as there is a very lengthy process outlined in the Wisconsin state statutes that requires the city to follow if they are seeking annexation of lands. It requires a 2/3 vote on a city referendum. There are court proceedings. There are costs to the city. If it was granted, the city would have to pay the town 5 years of property taxes for that annexation. And if, prior to the court hearing, a petition is filed with the required signatures against the petition of referendum, the court, under the statutes, shall deny the city's request. And shall in statutes means must. So in other words, this is a complete disincentive for any city to try and annex property from a town. It's the way the statutes are written, it's really in the town's favor, and a city can't just come in and grab land from a town. The second misconception is that there will be an increase in taxes to town residents. If there is an increase in your town's taxes, it won't be because the golf course is next to the city. The town has never received any tax dollars from the golf course, and the city won't either. Loss of farmland. There is none unless there would be farmland that abuts the golf course, and it's my understanding that there is some farmland that abuts it. But that farmer would have to petition, just like the county would have to petition for annexation to the city. And that's the choice of the property owner. the person who owns their own land. If they want to be annexed, that's up to them. Nobody's forcing annexation on anyone. And then the other one is the claims of fast-tracking underhanded government actions. I think the county administrator addressed this earlier with his comments. Everything that has been done, from my perspective, has just been the way government functions. And I understand that for people who aren't a county board supervisor or involved in government, it's always so hard to understand what the heck we're doing. But we're trying to do the best job that we can. I received 9 emails and 2 calls on this issue. There are over 130,000 residents in Washington County. When I vote on an issue before us, I vote on the basis of what is best for Washington County. I hope that every supervisor on this board does the same thing. I will be voting in favor of this because in the long run, it will benefit Washington County residents. We don't know what the future holds. This golf course may be here 100 years from now, or may be gone. Right now, it produces revenue that helps the park's sustainability plan. I believe annexation to the city will only increase its value for whatever the future holds. And in other words, we're just betting whether we do it now or we do it down the road. I agree with what Josh said. It's always been planned to happen. But I do want to thank all of you for coming this evening. It's always good to know that people care about what we do, and you have a voice, and we will listen with emails and phone calls. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Supervisor Bossert.
Okay, I want to talk about what I think is one of the major fears driving the opposition to this, but I'm going to back into this. So I'm going to ask the chair to indulge me a little bit. I'm going to back into this by talking about pizza. Okay. Now, I like pizza. It's my favorite food. If I'm going to get a pizza just for myself, I'm going to get a 10-inch pizza. If my girlfriend's with me, and, you know, if she's going to eat as much as me, our first instinct would be we need a 20-inch pizza. But that's thinking one-dimensionally. If you actually think two-dimensionally, because a pizza is not just a line, it's an object, you only need a 14-inch pizza to get double the amount of pizza.
Only you would know that.
Well, this is what you get for me not getting a chance to eat before I come here, so. But likewise, let's say my girlfriend knows she only eats half what I eat. So the first instinct would be we need a 15-inch pizza. We actually only need a 12.5-inch pizza to get 50% more pizza. Now, where am I going with that? The city of Hartford is going to grow. If the city of Hartford was going to double, they would go from being a 10-inch pizza to a 14-inch pizza. They're not going to double. The projections, the best projections we have right now, is over the next 30 years, they're going to grow by 50%. So the city of Hartford is going to grow from a 10-inch pizza to a 12.5-inch pizza. We saw the projections up there. We saw what the Farmland Preservation Plan was. We saw all the brown farmland that's going to be protected. There's a big fear that the city of Hartford is going to experience this wild, out-of-control growth. It's not going to happen. Nothing like that is going to happen. They're going to go from that 10-inch pizza to that 12-inch pizza. Maybe they'll be 13-inch. They're not going to have wild growth. And that's going to be 30 years from now. That's what's coming over the next 30 years. Not tomorrow, 30 years. So I think a lot of the fear out there of, you know, farmlands being decimated and the town of Hartford disappearing in the next 10 years, I think that's just overreaction. Let's see. Realistically, this proposal in relation to that pizza, it's like one little onion on that pizza. That's how small this proposal is. We talked about the parks. We talked about Space Park. I agree with Supervisor Bertram that that's not the best use of our park dollars. That's not a park that offers a lot. Likewise, Family Park. What do we have there? We have a swing set. We have a couple of picnic areas and a picnic shelter. I just looked at the website. I saw there actually is a hiking trail on there, which I didn't see driving by this weekend. That's on the level of what we would expect for a city park in the middle of a subdivision. That's not the type of park a county should be involved in. County parks have boat launches and beaches and, you know, hiking trails, which this one has one apparently, campgrounds, dog parks, all these things we're adding into our county parks. So I'm not seeing this park as a priority park we need to keep. The revenue, if we sell this, is gonna fund new amenities at our other parks. It's not a money grab. This is gonna make our other parks bigger and better. And that was the whole point of our priority parks plan. We wanna take the big parks and we wanna keep adding more stuff to them. Let's see, oh, one last question. I saw a comment on Facebook, and this is a question for Josh. Saw a comment on Facebook that this proposal, that if this annexation goes through, everybody in the town of Hartford is gonna see their taxes double. Is that at all match? I really saw this, I'm not kidding. Is the town, not the city, the town.
Our taxes are going up.
Is anybody in the town of Hartford gonna see any tax increase from this annexation?
No.
Not even a penny?
No, no. This will have nothing to do with
Okay,
property taxes.
all right, sounds good. That's what I have, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gauss.
Thank you, Chairperson Griswold. I'm trying to understand the facts to decide upon a vote, which many have first heard here tonight rather than been part of the packet to make an informed decision. So I'm struggling with trying to understand, I understand annexation, I understand the future plan, but what's the impetus for petition for the annexation now?
I'll defer to the executive committee.
Supervisor McCune.
Sorry, so the impetus, there's several things. It was unanimous, by the way, from executive to support this and bring it to this body, just so everybody knows. The impetus was when we looked at the property that we're talking about splitting off as far as Family Park. I came to the conclusion that there would be greater value, both now and in the future, for that, to help the sustainability of the park sustainability plan by putting this annexation forward. And it's now, Brian. I want to make sure you understand that, though. It's now. This is now. Now is the time. We're selling, and potentially we're going to get more money from selling this property if we annex, because there's more options for that person that buys that. If you go back to the map, I would argue you can do two for sure. Josh, if you can pull up the original map, you had a plan for one house site with one septic field site that we think was for sure. That's not the original. Okay, so that was one. So what happened was, okay, it went to the town of Hartford. It's in the minutes of the packet, so everybody that read this, it's, maybe I'll read it though, for everybody in the audience to say. From the town board minutes, from their town board meeting, Monday, September 9th at 7 p.m. So this isn't overnight, this happened in September. This is a direct reading of the minutes. Chairman Lippert stated that the county is not going to sell this parcel of land to the town for a small amount. He is not willing to spend $100,000 of the town's money for something that only services a small portion of the town. It would not be fair to the majority of the town residents. Okay? That's what happened. We looked at it, Jamie was doing her job, staff was doing their job. Everybody was following along with this park sustainability plan, which was approved. I mean, it wasn't unanimous, but we had the full backing of this board to back that plan. We've already sold off one piece. We're working on the Marks property. I looked at trying annexing the Marks property. If you could pull that back up now, Josh, the big map. That has a problem with it from an annexation standpoint. When I went to the city to find out all of the other parcels, that piece is not directly contiguous to the city. The only thing I'm going to correct a little bit, Josh, you earlier said Mount Vernon was about a decade.
Yes.
It's more than a decade.
Okay.
It was done with the Great Recession.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I will tell you right now, the planning for that started, and I will go on record, it started before the Great Recession. When everything started to be developed and the finished product now, yes, it's taken off since then, but the planning of that goes farther back before 10 years, okay? And that I know for a fact. You can look at it's public record of when everything was done and brought before different committees. But the Marks property can't be brought in. Otherwise, I would propose to bring in the Marks property as well to get greater value, to potentially divide that into several pieces as well. But it's not contiguous. And I'm not looking to force anybody else. This is our property. When I say our, it's the county's property, so I'm requesting for the county to bring it in. I'm not requesting anybody to be forced in. We're not asking anybody else to be part of this, it's just county property. At the executive committee meeting, I discussed what my opinion is of golf as a general industry right now, and it's going through a phase that's been very tough for the entire industry, whether it's in Wisconsin or across the country. Golf itself is changing. I had other people come up to me that are town residents that are acknowledged that golf has just changed. The golf course itself may change in the future, and there may not be all that land that's needed for the golf course. There are other courses that have shrunk their size of holes, they've changed their layouts, they've tried to speed up play, different things. If we annex this to the city of Hartford, we will have more flexibility as a county to do something with changing that. If it's kept in the town, we do have the joint committee to go through the town and the city. If it's in the city, we go to one entity to have the parks area work with them. So it offers more flexibility, it definitely increases value, but the timing of this is, we're selling this. It's not like, oh, we're gonna change our mind and not sell this property. If we're selling it's the farthest from the truth. There is nothing to be developed at the course right now other than this particular area for the family park. And that's my motive, to help the county fulfill their job and do what we're trying to do. And quite frankly, think about this. We have a property right now, an entire piece, that adds zero property tax value to this county and the town. When we sell off that 3-acre piece, if we can put one house on it, that assessed value then goes to part of it goes to our county and our school system and everything within it that has their handouts are a part of that tax. If we can add 2 houses, and please go back to that again, Josh, I want to show 2 houses on there. I mean, there's some builders in here, right? It's above my ability to tell you what the average house might be on these parcels here. But those assessments for 2 pieces, not rocket science. We get 2 tax bills, and it does come down to money. It's one of my favorite hobbies. I like money. This helps our county have more money. What happens? I believe in the trickle-down theory. As we get more money, taxes overall go down. When you get more tax base for something, we're not adding any services. There's no cost to the county for doing this as far as we're going to get taxes from this. That's why this is the time to do it. Thank you.
Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you. Before I begin, before Mark Mchugh, there was another supervisor speaking. I don't know if you finished.
Supervisor Gallons.
Supervisor Gallagher, you're finished with your comments? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you. My name is Brian Krebs, just so everyone's aware, I do represent District 8. That is the supervisory district that this golf course is located in. Also for the record, I never supported the parks
Can't hear him.
sustainability plan, so I was not a believer in this shutting of the parks to start with. So now here tonight we are back at the golf course. The golf course, since I've been on this county board, we've discussed, it seems, almost every term. We wanted to sell it, we wanted to keep it, we wanted to lease it out, we wanted to make improvements to it. We wanted to be in the business of golf, now sometimes we want to be out of the business of golf, and now we want to annex it. Before we go through the process of annexing this piece of property, I think it's better if the county goes through and actually takes the time to acknowledge what the future of the golf course will be. The county's a big believer in sustainability plans and studies. So many supervisors I've spoke to have referenced that golf is a dying sport, that will be contracting, that will be making future modifications to this golf course. If that's the case, before we start shedding valuable frontage of this golf course to the road frontage, I think it'd be best if we actually take a honest look at this county board and figure out what do we want with the golf course. I understand that the only reason for annexing the golf course, it appears at this point, is for the increased value of family park. But I don't think it's worth annexing the entire golf course over one, maybe two, maybe three parcels of property. I think this is a lot more of a larger picture that we're not really considering here yet today. A couple other points of concern and questions that I do have. I appreciate you, Josh, for bringing up all the past plans that lead us here, that we can maybe draw a conclusion from that. This has been a long time coming, but I don't believe it's been a long time coming. Yes, we've talked about selling the family park for maybe 2 years, splitting it up with the CSM, but the talk of annexation, in my mind, is 45 to 50 days old at max, ever since Supervisor Mchugh put in the request for it. I don't think that's been a long enough time for this board or the residents of the area to actually fully investigate it and understand the impacts of that. Another part of the annexation being forced through here so quickly, I understand it went through executive committee, but why hasn't this even started at the Public Works Committee that oversees the Parks Department? This whole process so far seems that there's really been a lack of public information about this process being put out there other than tonight's meeting before we started this debate. The next point that keeps coming up is that the annexation of the golf course and family park would increase the value. That, I believe, is up for debate in itself. I would argue that I would decrease the value. Maybe the actual property increases, but the surrounding neighborhood properties, I think there's actually a longer term decrease in value to the property owners that actually own them. And also talking about value, what is the value of family park? We talk about that it's going to make the county money. How much money will it make us? Jamie, if you got that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So when we looked at it for the potential for one single-family home under town zoning, with a vacant lot, we were looking at roughly $2,000 of property tax revenue for all of the entities, and upwards to $8,000 with a modest house that would be built there to the town, county, and schools in the district. With other potential development that could occur on the lot, we could see that doubling or even potentially tripling, depending on what type of development might go in on the property.
What about the actual sale price, not the tax levy?
We looked at the sale price with our realtor only under the premise that it would be zoned for single-family residential in the town of Hartford. And at that point, we were looking at roughly $100,000 if it were to be sold or listed.
And that was several months ago, probably 6-7 months ago when we got that figure.
And which realtor were you getting those figures from?
The one that we are currently have under contract with the Marks property, so that is Emmer.
And has that realtor on the Marks property procured any offered purchases yet?
No.
Thank you. I wanted to touch on the Joint Planning Commission meeting that Supervisor Mchugh commented on, and I do understand and agree with his take on the process that that board shouldn't comment on annexation before the actual formal petition is offered to them. But I do want to point out that the initial meeting that was requested of them was not for annexation, that was for a simple CSM that the county was offering, or requesting, the town was requesting to review at the time. The next part, what benefits, I'm asking this for everyone to answer in the brain, what benefits will the future owner that buys a lot at Family Park, if this goes through, and buys a lot that's in the city of Hartford, what will they enjoy there? What benefits does the city bring to them? The city's already said that they're not running sewer and water out there. So now they're gonna be paying those property owners, and I know that's their problem, not us as a county board member, but what benefits is the city gonna give them besides a fancy library, maybe a cheaper park, rec pass? It just
Police
doesn't.
protection.
So we'll have increased police protection on Clover Road. That would be wonderful. I just don't.
Supervisor Krebs, could you keep the comments to the point and leave the emotion out of it, please? Just like Joe Friday, just facts, let's keep it collegial as we speak. Thank you.
Well, then I guess I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Godwin.
Yes, thank you. Tonight in that, I've got a couple little things, but tonight in that, all of us in this room stood up and applauded some young gentlemen and ladies tonight. Now, where would they be today if we didn't have Fair Park? This board here, not all of you supervisors weren't here at the time, but there was a time when it was looked at to get rid of Fair Park, that we shouldn't have it. Okay, well, that didn't go down. We still have it. But where would these kids be today without that, without our park system as a whole? Okay, people that live in this county, even ones that don't live in this county, come and use our parks, whether they're mowed or not. Adjacent landowners I've spoken to out there still use that park. They walk that park. It's not mowed. But we put a lot of money into that park to start out with. Now, it's a shame that we're not keeping it up, and it's one of the parks that we decided not to. But to get rid of it, I don't believe that is a good thing to do for the people. People from inside and outside of this county gave things to Washington County to be used for the good of all. Okay, yes, by getting money for these lots, supposedly that you might be selling, which you haven't had an offer on the one property, a 40-acre property yet, and that's been for sale for quite a long time. But you get money from that, that's gonna help the people within the county somewhat, because it's gonna go into the park fund in order to offset there again. When are we gonna run out of land to sell to offset? Okay, there's a question to keep everybody's mind in there. The other thing is annexation. I know it said, it was just stated that they weren't going to provide sewer and water service out there. Normally annexation in any place includes sewer and water at some point. It will be mandatory. So at that point, because there is already sewer and water on the southeast corner of it, how long do you think that it's gonna be before it's made to have sewer and water all the way up to the clubhouse? And what kind of money is that gonna be costing the county to put that in? Or is that gonna be your way of saying, oh, let's get rid of the golf course now, it's gonna cost us too much money? Okay, there's a lot of things I do believe that are in the background of a lot of people's minds here that aren't coming forward. We're hearing half-truths. We're not hearing the whole story. On our reports here, it says to be determined cost. Nobody knows. I think we're going way too quick for this. 6 months from now, maybe it'd be a different story. Once you have everything to come out, not to hold anything back. Thank you.
Let me answer one of your questions with what happens with the monies that we get from selling properties. That money is reinvested into the park. It's an enterprise fund. It increases the amenities. Now we have a barn in Homestead Hollow to host events and weddings. As you know, that's a big business now. There's not enough in the private sector to handle it, so we're getting the overflow for that. We've done a lot of work on all of our priority parks, so it's not a money grab. It's used, and the money is reinvested into that enterprise fund to not only make them sustainable. It's not like that money goes, they spend that money and they come back and they have to sell another property. No, that money goes into different venues within those parks that bring in additional revenue. So as they do that, that revenue, the parks are able to stay eventually completely outside of the county levy, running on their own, just like a business would. So I take exception with that part, but so that's the answer to that question. So it's not, once we sell off the properties that are not priority, then the park system is going to be floundering. That's the furthest from the truth that it can be. Thank you.
Here's one part on that. If it's going to these priority parks and their own way, I live along Highway 33, just off of 33, and I have a park right in my backyard. And I go over there every now and then. There's always cars there. Every time I go through, there's always cars. There's always kids. There's always mothers, fathers. There's people fishing there. They come out with their canoes and everything at that park. So I mean, that's well-used park. And I've talked to a lot of these, especially the ones with young children. You know why they go there? And they're not going to the other parks with that little hut in the front? Because they have to pay to go to those parks. They said straight out, if we have to afford to pay for that, that's one less thing that we're gonna end up doing with the kids. Now, granted, it doesn't cost that much for a park pass, but every little bit in some budgets count. And that. This little park that I have in my backyard, it's a gorgeous little park. If they put one of those little huts there, you can guarantee that my road that I live on is gonna be solid cars, both sides, and people will walk over to that park. So they don't have to pay, so.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I just wanna highlight, there's been a lot of talk about the park's fiscal sustainability plan. It's what's driving this entire discussion. It's what's driving the entire reason that we even got to this point. Supervisor Krebs pointed out that he's the only supervisor who has not voted for this. There's actually two others who have never. I'm sorry. He's the only supervisor who pointed out that he didn't. There's Supervisor Mary and Supervisor Sumisek were not here at the meeting that it came up during their term. They weren't on the board at the meeting before that. Other than that, everyone in this room has voted to support the park's fiscal sustainability plan.
Okay.
So if you want to change it, change it.
Okay, Supervisor Bertram, I'm gonna wait for you. You've already had a chance, so other people are waiting in line. I'll get you at the end. Supervisor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going to touch on what Josh said. A couple of years back, we all approved, most of us anyway, approved the park sustainability plan. And what that meant is we were going to try and get the parks off the tax levy.
It was 22-1, just for the record.
We were going to get the parks off the tax levy. We were going to utilize every tool at our option. We put Jamie under, basically told her on notice that we will look at everything. There were no sacred cows. So if there was land that was underdeveloped, not being utilized, if there was a gravel pit that we could take advantage of, if there was selling off land, if anything and everything, we wanted to know it. Permits and park stickers were part of that. And we all sat here and we all approved that, okay? But I'm getting a little disappointed with pulling the rug out every time we come up with a good plan. This is a good plan because we have an obligation to the taxpayers. With all due respect to the people who live out there, we represent Washington County, not one particular area. My area here is here in the city, but I have to do what's best for the whole county. The park sustainability plan is good for the whole county because it produces money and operations for all the parks scattered around the county that are being better utilized, okay? And if we have an opportunity here to sell this land and get a good price for it, like Mr. Mchugh says, okay, that is our obligation as county board supervisors to our constituents throughout the county. All of our assets should be properly maintained, properly cared for, properly disposed of at the price we can get. As supervisors, as people who work for any business, you know, I do purchasing for my company. I try to get the most stuff I can for the least amount of money. This is what the sustainability plan means. This is our obligation. This is what we signed up for 2 years ago. As far as how quickly this moved, let me tell you, I'm in business. There's nothing about this government that moves quickly. Okay. All I want to know is were all the state statutes followed? Were proper notices given for all the meetings? And they were. That, I'm satisfied with that. So I can put that rumor to right to rest. I just want to say at the end of this, it's time we put this down. We take a vote. This needs to happen. I don't believe that the sky is falling on this at all. Okay, this is just a way for us to get rid of some property that's not being utilized, to put it into our other parks that will use it properly. It is our obligation as this board to make this decision. I will not stand and I will fight any type of delay tactic, tabling, putting off, or sending back to any committee. I do not accept that. I do not tolerate that. People who know me in this room understand that I've fought this before. You are here to make a decision. We're going to make it tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Hartwig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh, I want to thank you for going out to the subdivision and talking to these people. Here's the thing that I want to bring up. As of the first of the year, I'm retiring. I did retire, at least I think I did. Anyway, my wife said to me, so what are we going to do now that you're retired? She says, how about if we start taking the grandkids to all the parks like we used to do when we didn't have any money to go anywhere else with them? So that's my question to these people that go to this park up here, the family park. Did you get a number on how many people from the area subdivisions probably attend that park always?
I didn't. I got some anecdotal. My wife took the grandkids there and those types of examples, but not numbers.
Okay, thank you. That's one of my big reasons. I'm thinking, why would we want to get rid of this park? And the golf course is paid for, it's making money. Why would we want to do anything like that? You know, I think we should hang on to it and not annex it at this time. And I just think that it's not the right time to do it. Another thing is, I see a young gentleman sitting over there with a picture. He must have a farm up in that area or something. I don't know who he is, but I can see his concern. He probably figures if the golf course gets annexed, then down the road, there's gonna be subdivisions moving out. Next thing you know, he seems like a young fellow. Next thing you know, they're gonna be after his farm also. I can see, sure, if there was an elderly couple that didn't have anybody to hand the farm down to, you know, they wouldn't have any worries. They'd be glad to see houses coming in, some place to sell their farm to. But I just, he caught my eye, and I think he's one of the people that would make their mind up to vote no on this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bertram.
Thank you. I'm not gonna go over old ground so that we know. The thing of it is though, is when Josh said that more or less pushing this down the road because it's in the plan for Hartford, it's in the plan for this, for that. I'm the town chairman for the town of Barton, and the city of Westman's got a plan to take over the town of Barton in the next 15 years. And that ain't gonna happen. I'm gonna tell you that right now, no, it's not gonna happen. So, I mean, plans are made with good ideas in mind, no doubt about it. But as we know, plans change. And I just think that, I don't even think that, I go along with Mr. Kelly. I don't believe we need another study or whatever. I just don't think it's necessary for us to put this into the city. So I agree with Mr. Kellen on 2 points. That, and we should take a vote, and the vote should be no. Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me talk again. A couple things have been brought up, and I just want to touch on a few of them. The original intent of sectioning off this property was to work with the Park Sustainability Plan. I'm on Public Works. I did vote that we should look at sectioning off this property. But that is with the township. And in order for this to happen, Mr. Mchugh had pointed out that, well, we haven't applied for, or haven't put the annexation in yet, we shouldn't be having the joint meeting. The town has to meet with the city anyway because this property is within the borders of the city. So in order to do a subdivision, or a cutting out, zoning of this property, they have to get permission from the city as well. That's why that meeting has to happen. And I think we need to let the local municipalities do their business. I'm not saying we shouldn't sell this property for a home. I'm saying we should let the municipalities do their jobs.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, I believe this was for saying, if I misstated, please correct me, that the reason the city has to be involved is extraterritorial jurisdiction.
I didn't have the right word.
Yes.
That's what I meant, thank you.
So that was a correct statement, but that's the term.
Supervisor Mchugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to make for the record, the city of Hartford has 21 parks. I go to a lot of these parks often because I like to go through drive-through. I have a very large park right across the street from me with Woodlawn Union Park. I know a lot of people from the town. They use our parks. We charge them nothing. Okay, so going into what Supervisor Goddard brought up, he said, you know, this thing about Fair Park and where would the 4-Hers be. I think that's a little bit disingenuous in the fact that we're talking about a 3-acre park. And we're also, he also always touts the fact that he wants the towns, and I would think he would, because he's a member, I think you're the town chairman of Trenton, I believe, and villages, to make the decisions concerning it. Well, I'm the mayor of the city, and so I would think that given the arguments they just made, Supervisor Bishop and Supervisor Gronering would vote yes. Interesting, because I'm representing the city that's looking at the possibility of annexation. Now, before I'm excoriated, please understand, the mayor of the city, if you understand how things work, doesn't have a vote. It's the 9 city council persons that have a vote. I only vote in case of tie. The chance of there being a tie, considering there are 9 council persons, is very, very low. In my 3.5 years as mayor, I've only voted once to break the tie. So chances are I will not be voting at all on this when it comes to the actual annexation petition. But again, we need the annexation petition to go forward. I was interested in just so there is no confusion on Supervisor Hartwig's comment when he said, you know, he doesn't think we should get rid of it. This is part of the problem of some of the emails and calls that I received. Bob, we're not getting rid of anything. All we're doing is saying that the land it sits on is the city and not the town. It's still the county golf course. That will not change. The tax revenue, there is no tax revenue, so there is nothing against as far as the town. They're not losing anything. I'll be happy to give you 5 times or 0 for the next 5 years. There is no loss to the town of Hartford when it comes to that. I also wanted to make sure that I read the rest of the comment from the Plan Commission. This is, from the town minutes. This is from the 9/9 board meeting from September 9th that Supervisor Mchugh started reading. He said, referring to the chairman, Ryan Lippert, he's not willing to spend $100,000 of the town's money for something that only services a small portion of the town. Well, I agree with that. He agrees with that. That means that the town and the city are in agreement on this. They don't want to pay it. We're not going to give it to them. So if Supervisor Gronering and Supervisor Bishop are being honest rather than disingenuous about their want for the municipalities, the town and the city, to get what they want, that's what is in their minutes. It would not be fair, going on to quote, for a majority of the town residents. Perhaps the residents that live around there and use the park, this is the town chairman, okay, could go together and buy the park if they want to keep it a park for their subdivision to use. That's not a bad idea. When you're talking about, if you want a private preserve, if you want to lock that in, keep it in the town forever and forever, because once you buy it, you'd have to, this group that bought it would have to or petition the city for annexation. And I'm guessing if they spend about $8,900 a piece, plus insure it every year, plus pay taxes on it every year, they will never want it in the city. And we wouldn't put it in the city because they would never petition for annexation to the city. So they do have another remedy, Mr. Chairman, and that's why I'm trying to tie in all of these comments that are being made, even with the town of Barton. I find that fascinating when it's brought up as the chairman, Mr. Chairman, for the town of Barton, that you would state that, well, they're not going to do it. Unless your people petition for annexation, they can't do it. So, I mean, to make that comment as if the city of West Bend is lurking there and waiting to pounce. The state statute prevents that from happening. So the threat is a non-threat as far as the town of Barton actually being taken over. I just want to make sure that we're looking at this through the correct lens, backing off of some of the hyperbole and understanding that, you know, I know that there's a lot of truths out there and you know, like Joe Biden said, you know, he'll take truth over fact any day. Personally, I'll go with the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Schleif.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 things. First of all, clarification. We're not selling that whole park. We're just selling the western part. The lake has to stay for irrigation of the golf course, correct?
It's even more complicated than that. You're not even talking about selling it, technically. You're talking about annexing it. The next step would be talking about selling it.
Right. Okay. But are the paths around the lake? I mean, what prevents the neighbors from still walking around the lake? We're going to keep that, correct?
That's correct. There would be nothing that would prevent anybody from utilizing the pond, and we even talked about making it a little bit more accommodating to walk around the pond.
Okay, thank you. And I'd also like to thank Supervisor Dice for reminding us of the state statutes and how hard it is to go through the process to annex property. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Just to clarify, there are, the county attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's half a dozen different procedures for annexation. The one that was being spelled out by Supervisor Dice is if the city tried to
Force it.
proactively do annexation. Typically, this is the process. There's a request by the property owner. That is forced annexation that was described, which is an extremely difficult process. Just to clarify.
Supervisor Mchugh, you have the last word on this?
I want to correct Supervisor Bishop and Conry. As far as this joint meeting, if we approve this tonight, guess what? It will go before that joint committee meeting. So if that's what you want, if you want to approve this tonight, it'll go before that committee. For the split to happen with the family park area, according to the statute and according to the rules that are set in place, hopefully both of the supervisors are listening, because I think they've been disingenuous. I think that's the word of the night. And Joe, you can shake your head all you want. You have been so disingenuous with this. And bringing up the 4-H kids, shame on you. I tell you that right now. Shame on you, because the money that will be brought from this sale, potentially, is going to be used for the park sustainability plan, which will help the causes of 4-H. So for you to bring that up, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. And I think everybody can see through it, Joe. It's really bad.
Yeah.
You were the one that brought up the get rid of Fair Park way back.
Supervisor Gallops, I guess you'll have the last word.
I'm sorry to jump in, but I think it would be a good timing, at least for a moment, to walk through the process of what unanimous consent annexation looks like. To clarify, if this board passes the resolution tonight, what really happens next under the law. Under the law, the petition that would be drafted would be filed with the city, and within 5 days of that, a copy of that petition goes to the Department of Administration and the clerk in the town. At that point, within 20 days, the Department of Administration conducts what they call a public interest review, and they will kick out what's called an issues opinion. It's a non-binding opinion by that particular body, but they're looking to see whether the annexation seems to comply with the laws, the property contiguous, for example, to between the two municipalities and so on. They will kick that opinion out to the city, who will then consider that opinion and do with it what they will. But in any event, they then would have to vote on an ordinance approving annexation, and that would have to pass by a 2/3 majority of the city council. So, and then if that passes, then the annexation ordinance is filed with the DOA, the utility companies, register of deeds, and so forth. So that's the actual process. I've been advised it probably takes, in a perfect world, about 3 to 4 months to happen. So hopefully that clears up any sort of questions you might have about what really goes on next. No joint meeting is required, none of that by statute. What the municipality does once we pass the ball, to use the chairman's analogy at times, is up to it, but statutorily that's what would be required to occur. So.
Supervisor Gallops.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to make sure I understand the answer to this question. Is the annexation to the city of Hartford required to sell this property?
No.
Meaning the farmer's park?
No.
No requirement.
Supervisor Goddard.
Yes, thank you. Attorney Stern and that, just to add a little bit to it, that commission from the state that looks at it, they do write a letter to the municipalities that they're within, and they look for if there's anything that's wrong, that the municipality says, you can't do this because, okay, but you need a real strict reason in order for them to say, you're right. You can't just have something, I don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, what they're going to do is take a look and see whether or not the annexation passes the legal muster, if you will. They're not going to consider, I think, the political conditions and so forth.
But they do reach out to the municipality, like the town of Hartford, they would be reaching out to them by letter, just to leave them know that this is happening.
I don't know what the DOA does, how they make their sausage, if you will, but they will be kicking out an opinion. How they put that opinion together, I don't know. Maybe it's just an attorney looking at the legalities of it. The petition itself that would be drafted would be filed, a copy with the towns, so the towns on notice and so forth. They'd see that document for sure. What happens with the DOA opinion, that I don't know exactly who they all send it to. I'm assuming they send it to all interested parties.
Okay. Supervisor Brander has stepped out.
I just want to close, if that's okay, with two things. One, I want to clarify, County Attorney Stern pointed something out, that the essay from the county attorney back in the 90s, County Attorney Farragher at the time, refers to the farmland preservation intentions of the county, the zoning and the future land use of the county, not specifically annexation, although all of those things are tied together. Just to be clear. Secondly, from a staff perspective, part of our due diligence process had everything to do with the timing of the decision. Whether this should be postponed. We had a lot of constituents reach out to us as staff, ask for a postponement of the issue. There's no factual basis for a postponement at this time. There's no request from the town to postpone at this time. There's no reason that we can find to postpone. There's no reason not to do the annexation that we can find. That was the purpose of our digging into the history. There's also no specific factual reason or purpose to expedite it. This is purely a public policy decision. This is literally why a county board exists, to make a decision on if and when you do stuff like this. So staff still has no recommendation. You need to make the public policy decision about what is, if and when the time is to annex the golf course. That should be the question you're considering as you prepare to vote.
Okay, seeing there's no more discussion, we'll vote on this electronically. You get ready?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before you call for a vote, I believe there was a document placed on the supervisor's desk this evening that indicate a potential amendment to this particular resolution. I hope you have that language there in front of you. Maybe you can speak to what it is.
Sure, mine's got handwritten notes all over it now, but it's a couple of short paragraphs. First is really just the proposed amendment. I'll read it real fast. The proposed amendment is, whereas one such immediate benefit will be the petitioning for land division of an unutilized 3-acre parcel of land known as Washington County Family Park, located on the northeast side of the property for the purpose of placing the parcel onto the tax roll. The reason that we're asking you to consider that amendment is to clarify to the city of Hartford, if you're to approve this resolution, that it's our intent to get this annexation for the explicit purpose of dividing that land. Again, these are two separate issues that you're taking up, that you're really discussing. But in order to do the one, you need to do the first. So we want to make it very clear to the city of Hartford and their plan commission and their staff, and we've discussed this, and when I say we, I really mean our staff, has discussed this with city of Hartford staff, that we need to just be very, very clear that our intent not only is for the annexation, but to divide off that piece of family park, okay? So I would seek that amendment to the resolution as you're considering it.
Supervisor Mchugh and Supervisor Kelly.
That amendment would go into line 36 is what I would recommend.
I can show it.
Yeah, motion by Mchugh and motion second by Kelly. Second by Kelly. When you're ready.
Do you want, I just was showing the amendment
Okay.
physically?
We're voting on motion on amendment.
Yeah, yeah.
Chairman, we're voting on the amendment only.
Voting on the amendment only.
Supervisor Merton has a question.
Supervisor Martin?
Is it the northeast side? I guess I'm trying to figure this whole deal out. Looks to me like it's the northwest side of the property.
Yeah. It's in our,
So we are considering the north, let me go through that just one moment.
But the northeast side was where the practice golf area was.
no, northwest and northwest.
That's further west.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the map that you're looking at on the screen at the moment is the entirety of the golf course. The amendment clarifies that area on the top right corner, so northeast corner, is the area that we're contemplating for a land division. So that would be the northeast corner.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the amendment. Please press present and then your vote.
Want to ask if everyone has confirmed their vote?
Everyone confirm, make sure everyone confirms your vote. Are we all in?
Yep. 23, correct?
Hmm?
23?
Yep, 23. Motion for the amendment passes 15-8. Now we'll go to the, Supervisor Mchugh.
Yeah, I want to clarify something. So I disagree with something that Josh said, and maybe he's saying staff doesn't have an opinion with it, but if you truly believe in the sustainability plan, how can the staff not encourage doing this to get maximum value? And I'm looking at facts. This isn't subjective to me. This isn't, it's what's good for the whole company, whether you're in the little town of Erin, or the town of Barton, or the town of Newburgh. What's best for the county is to get the maximum value. We cannot split that piece of land without the city's approval. So when you say, well, it was going to go to the town-city joint meeting, yes. To split it, the city needs to approve that because of the extraterritorial powers within the city statutorily given to them by the state of Wisconsin. So what I proposed is for the maximum value and the maximum potential value of that parcel of land that we can control by giving it to the city. If it's kept in the town, the city can say no. Then your map up there shows just one parcel, and the city doesn't have to approve the split from this. Just so everybody knows, if we don't put it in, the city doesn't have to. The Plan Commission and the council can vote that down. And if anybody wants to correct me on that, I challenge you right now, because that is the fact. And I want to make sure everybody understands that. We have no control as the owner if we take that to try to split it without getting city approval. But if we annex it, which I've annexed plenty of properties in my career, I've done it. So I know what you have to do with it. The city will have to go before their group after the everybody looks at what is done according to the statutes. The city still can say no. There's no guarantee the city agrees to this. But to get the maximum dollars and to split it, we couldn't even do it without the annexation. With the annexation, then the city has the option to do that. The town doesn't. So does everybody understand that?
Yeah, let's vote.
Thank you.
The answer to your question is simple. I mean, you called staff to the carpet, I'll answer the question.
I am.
Yeah, the land division does not require an annexation.
Not for maximum dollar, Josh.
I understand your point. The land division could be done by the town and the city combined. They have to agree to it, there's no doubt about that.
They have to agree.
I understand, you're completely correct.
But don't you want maximum dollars for the staff? I'm putting you on the record right now. Yeah, why wouldn't you want maximum dollars?
I believe that the maximum dollar argument is negligible. I believe, yes. The maximum dollar amount that the county is going to collect in property taxes is negligible. It's significant for the city, there's no doubt about
We
that.
were just talking about the 4-H people and the people that go by Don.
I didn't say that there weren't disingenuous arguments tonight.
Oh,
All I said was
I
that,
agree with you on that, all right.
all I said was that you can do it, it's possible.
All right,
Staff.
we agree on the disingenuous.
Yeah, well, there's lots of disingenuous comments at every meeting. But my point is, it can be accomplished. It's why staff proposed it the way we proposed it initially. We knew that the people in the subdivision next to it didn't want it. They told us they didn't want it to even become a residential piece of property, let alone be annexed into the city. I live in a subdivision in Richfield. Okay? I have a cornfield next to my house. I don't want the damn thing to be turned into a subdivision. That's why I went to the neighborhood. I wanted to hear straight from them. And they'll tell you if you ask them. Go sit at their kitchen tables. They'll tell you they don't want it. They don't want the city next to them. That's the entire reason that we suggested splitting it off, going through the town process, and annexing. And some of them sitting in this room, if they're honest, they'll tell you, annexing they know is going to happen someday. They just don't want it to happen today. They prefer not to ever see it happen as long as they're alive. So. Putting that property on the tax roll is my priority, period, the end. Mark's fiscal sustainability plan is my priority, period, the end. It used to be all of yours too, except for Brian.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on this.
Supervisor Martin called in.
Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Merton.
One other item that I noticed in the resolution was line 39, where it's affected township, as I understand it, statutes refer to towns as towns, not townships.
We'll make that correction.
Okay, remember to press present first. Make sure everybody has voted.
Yep.
23? Okay. Motion passes 15-8. Next meeting date will be Wednesday, February 12th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Prior to adjournment, the Employee Appreciation Dinner is coming up in February. You may have noticed it in my chairperson's report. See Supervisor Kelling. He is doing the collections this year again.
Can I speak?
Yeah, let me get you. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. To all the fellow supervisors, as you know, once again, we are having our Employee Appreciation Dinner. Last year, we collected from all supervisors, and that was really special for me to go up on stage and show them that the county board really cares about the people that serve our community. I am taking donations this year for, once again, providing door prizes for our people. The suggested donation is $100. We will take, however, whatever donation you can give us. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Just hit me up whenever you see me. Thank you.
We hereby adjourn.
No, just